Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. This week marked the somber one-year anniversary of the horrific Hamas attacks on Israel on October 7th, a day that the world must never, ever forget. So what are the lessons from that terrible day, and why haven't many U.S. colleges cracked down on hate-filled protests that continue to plague their campuses and elsewhere? And where is the war headed? Is Israel going it alone against Iran? Well, joining us now to talk about all of this and so much more is former veteran Israeli diplomat Shahar Azani. Shahar, great to have you here.
Rita, it's always a joy to speak with you, and especially on such an important topic and under the title of Protecting America, because that in itself is the essence of everything that you and I are going to talk about. And in addition, especially you that has been so on the spot, understanding the long-term ramifications and regional and international ramifications of what we're seeing now happening in the Middle East.
Well, thank you so much, Shahar, and you too, and your great service to freedom in the U.S. and also Israel and well beyond. Shahar, what do you believe are the most important lessons drawn from October 7th a year ago? What do we have to make sure we never, ever forget?
Well, I want to narrow it down. There are so many directions we can take this question into, and I'm sure that for any decent, justice, peace-loving human being, anybody who is pro-America, pro-the West, pro-Israel, this is a very traumatic occasion. But for me, the very practical conclusion is believe them when they tell you who they are. Because I can tell you that one of the things I beat myself up, as an Israeli, is, we were listening to Hamas leaders. We heard them say what they say about massacring, killing Jews, raping, maiming, pillaging, killing. We saw their videos, their propaganda videos. We saw their TV shows. They had I think Disney should also sue them for using the Mickey Mouse character, but this time carrying a gun or a knife and killing Jews. That's how they indoctrinate children. So we've seen it not for years, for decades. And for some reason, we chose to believe ourselves in telling ourselves lies like, let's talk about a two-state solution. All they want is their own piece of land and economic hope. All they want is to be given a chance. Then we refused to acknowledge evil. Evil looked us in the eye and we looked away. And when I try to draw this conclusion concretely into our life now, and I look around me, I ask myself, all of those ignorant mobs, malicious mobs who are marching down the street and chant in support of Hamas, in support of decapitating children, of putting babies in the oven, how likely are they to follow up on those words? How much of a danger do they pose to America's national security? And why are they covering their faces in such a way that they're making sure that nobody can ID them? What are they hiding with their malicious ideology? And what are the conclusions, the practical conclusions that we must all draw from it? Because we must make sure that what happened in Israel not just never repeats itself in Israel, never repeats itself, period, including in this wonderful country that we live in, the United States of America, that we so cherish and we so love. And when they burn down American flags out there, and when they trash American monuments like they did in Washington, D.C., there is one image from the past year that will always accompany me. It felt to me like the crossing of the Delaware. It was that moment at UNC Chapel Hill when you saw the frat boys hoisting the U.S. flag when the anti-U.S. mob tore it down and put an anarchical Palestinian flag, and they chose to put the American flag back on and protect it, and were holding it up while being pelted and laughed at and chanted at and cursed at, and they stood strong and stood tall. And that, to me, is the kind of pride that we must all carry within ourselves, and the kind of lessons that we must take from October 7th. Believe them when they tell you who they are.
You brought up some really powerful points there. On the flip side, also around that same time as what happened in North Carolina, Shahar Azani, we saw right outside of the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., them hoisting a Palestinian flag. Luckily, some members of Congress later came and took it down and replaced it with a U.S. flag. But the fact that it's happening all over the country, including right outside the U.S. Capitol, what does that say to you?
So I think what it shows us is, and it's, we look at the Jews as the canary in the mine, right? Whatever goes wrong when it comes to the Jews is a mirror image of what's wrong in society. That's been a characteristic of anti-Semitism for generations and in various societies and countries in the course of time. When we look at the U.S., what the last year has also revealed to us is what's happening on American college campuses and with the education of our children. Hardworking Americans are working very hard on providing for their children, educating our children, and then we take all that money and we put it into our kids' education so that they may have a better future for themselves, so that they are able to support themselves, and then we send them on college campus, and suddenly we find out that on the same college campus that we send them to, where they're educated, there is foreign money that's being funneled into those campuses to teach our precious children to hate the United States of America and to come out and support evil causes in the support of terrorist organizations. And I think that this year highlighted the major challenge that we're facing in some of what we call the Ivy League, and what I love to refer to as the poison Ivy League. What's happening on college campus when they poison the minds of students, when it's okay to harass a student just because they're visibly Jews, and it's okay to stand in Congress and say that you can call for genocide of Jews depending on the context. And you're seeing that there is a major challenge there, a major moral abyss that exists in the heart of the educational system, the higher education system of our children. And that is one of the practical issues that came up immediately as a result of what's happening around October 7th, and that calls for action. It's not just a mere complaint, Rita. We're talking about measures that must be taken by Congress to defund those campuses that promote those values, to look deeply into the funding of our future generations' leadership using foreign evil money that comes from various sources. I heard the Palestinian Authority gave a couple of $1 million on some of the college campuses. Qatar, a country that supports Al Jazeera and supports Hamas, having their leadership in Qatar, is funneling tens of billions of dollars into this country. We have to put a stop to it because it presents a clear and present danger to our future. Again, far beyond just being an Israeli or Jewish issue. It goes straight into the core of your podcast, Rita. It's about protecting America.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
You hit some great points there, because how come some of these, college professors, they were skewered on Capitol Hill? I mean, you think about the moments with Elise Stefanik and others, and yet, some of them, quote, resigned, some of them were pushed out, but a lot of them are still there, or they're replaced by somebody who seems to be allowing these protests yet again. Why is that?
Well, and you're also, Claudine Gay at Harvard continues to be a tenured professor there, even though she's no longer the president. So the decay in the system persists. And most of it is, again, because unfortunately, we don't have enough leaders who understand the severity of the moment and who are equipped with the necessary courage to take immediate action on it. They still frame it within that context of, this is about Israel, this is about the land dispute, this is about a two-state solution, this has got nothing to do with us. They don't understand what you understand and what, unfortunately, too few understand, which is that this is a battle that's being waged for the foundation of the principles that are at the core of who we are as a Western freedom-loving society, that we have an Islamic Republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran, that is a truly empire of evil, that is leading an axis of evil, that is immiserating hundreds of millions of people around the world, that go far beyond the aspirations, go far beyond the Middle East. This is a country, again, believe them when they tell you who they are. They're talking about exporting the revolution. They're talking about undermining the big Satan. And the big Satan is not Israel, Rita. The big Satan is the United States. We are the small Satan. We are the representatives of the big Satan. It's a country that has been funneling funds to destabilize the region, to undermine U.S. allies within the moderate Sunni regimes in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. It's a country that has been supporting the Houthis in Yemen, causing millions of Yemenis to die of hunger. It's a country that has abducted Lebanon using Hezbollah, taking away any chance for sovereignty for this beautiful country that has no qualm with the state of Israel, from a capital city, Beirut, that used to be called back in the day Paris of the Middle East. It's a country that hijacked the Palestinians and used Hamas in order to immiserate Gaza and turn it into the mound of rubble that it is now. And it's a country that's using its external operations in South America for drug trade to undermine the United States of America. It's a true axis of evil. And we have to wake up and understand that this evil is knocking on our door. And it's not going to go away if we cower on the couch and cover ourselves with a blanket. We have to stand up to evil. Nobody likes war. Nobody wants war. Least of all, I can assure you, Israelis and my fellow Israelis. I was speaking with my family the other day when Iranian missiles were striking. I was talking with my family when Hezbollah fired rockets and they landed not far and they could feel it real well within the house. Nobody wants war. Nobody likes war. But in order to avoid war, you have to win this war. And you cannot appease that evil. You have to defeat that evil. And that requires a strong moral compass and courage, Rita. Courage. That's what we need today. Courage.
I have so many questions for you. I want to go back also real quick on the college campuses. First, you brought up also masks. Why has there not been a mask ban? You see it in Nassau County, New York, but the protests are happening in New York City. Why do we not? How can they hide behind hate?
Hide behind hate while attacking police officers, by calling these heroes pigs to their faces, by trying to snatch away their gear or their hats and humiliate them, while striking a lone Jew the other day, who was walking down the street with a flag of Israel and punching him in the face without any accountability, with complete impunity. I think it's shameful that they're allowing masks for hatred. I think these masks have to come off now. I'm not saying they shouldn't espouse their evil ideology. Let them walk down the street, but with their faces clear for all to see who they are. I always say that everybody needs to know who they are. Their neighbors need to see who they are. Their employers need to see who they are. The shopkeeper where they buy their food needs to know who they are. And the FBI needs to know who they are. And that is, I think, a basic requirement for a society that seeks to defend itself against evil. We're not going to be able able to defend ourselves if we keep on covering our eyes, Rita, and look away from that evil. It's time for them to be unmasked, but for also to make sure that we are not masking our own sight.
You know, you talked also about the role of Hezbollah in the drug trade. Not that many people sort of know what's going on and how they're trying to destroy America from within. Explain that. Yes, explain that, because that is mind-blowing.
So, that's something that a lot of people are unaware of, that Hezbollah's operations go far beyond, Lebanon. First of all, the one important point to remember about Hezbollah is it's not just a part of the axis of evil and a proxy of the Islamic Republic. It's not just an evil Shiite terrorist group. It's a very anti-West, anti-American group that has American blood on their hands. Including let's never forget those heroes of the 241 Marines who were butchered by Hezbollah on October 23, 1983, along with 59 French soldiers and 24 employees of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut who were part of a peacekeeping force butchered by this group. Let's not forget Hezbollah's operations against 500,000 Syrians that were cheering when Nasrallah was taken out, the leader of Hezbollah, because of what Hezbollah had done to them in the service of Iran to protect Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. And let's not forget Hezbollah's overseas operations. Hezbollah has an extensive network of agents all across the West and in South America ready to strike at Western targets. Hezbollah was responsible for bombarding the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires in the 90s and for attacking the Amia building, the Jewish community center in Buenos Aires, killing scores of people and injuring hundreds more. Hezbollah's operations abroad are meant to attack civilian destinations. They attack an Israeli tour bus in Bulgaria, killing Israeli tourists, and they are ready to strike wherever they are because this is how you, quote unquote, export their revolution, including supporting the opium trade in South America to funnel drugs into the United States of America and weaken, quote unquote, American society so that they could take over. They really do believe themselves, by the way, and I know that a lot of people don't take it seriously, but they really do believe that they can do it, that they can defeat the United States of America. And just imagine if such an evil empire lays its hands on nuclear weapon, what is that going to do to the world order? And I'm not talking about just Israel and the Jewish people. I'm talking about all of us here.
How close do you believe Iran is to a nuclear weapon? I mean, there have been so many different reports out there. What do you believe is the reality, Shahar?
I think we should assume danger rather than convince ourselves the danger doesn't exist. I think it's reasonable to assume that they're very close. Remember, this is a country that doesn't abide by any international agreement or law, even ones that they sign on. So you should expect nothing less from the Iranians than to lie and deceive, what we call the smiles attack, when they come to the UN and try to play it like they're all, innocent, and who even wants a nuclear weapon. It's part of their strategy to lie and deceit and to perpetrate deceit against the West. I think we should assume that we're talking about a year and a half, and that really takes us to where we are now, because Iran has exposed itself. Its proxies have been annihilated by Israel. Hamas is practically non-existent in Gaza as a government entity and as a military entity. It's now diminished to back to being a guerrilla terrorist savage organization, and it will be in constant war with Israel because we will not rest and we will not be quiet until they're done. We're done and over with them. But also look at Hezbollah, the other proxy that is in tatters as a result of the Israeli offensive. And now that its proxies are gone, we always say that the Iranians are very generous with Arab blood, but far less generous when it comes to the price that they themselves will have to pay. And now is the time to exercise that leverage against Iran and either make sure that they don't have any nuclear capability by means of negotiations, but real negotiations, not the kind that were conducted before, that will take away those capabilities or take them out militarily. We have a golden opportunity to rid the world of this huge problem, and that's an opportunity that we might not have in the near future. And we should think about this not just because it's Israel, because Iran's nuclear issue is not only an Israeli problem. It's a problem for the world. And imagine if the Islamic Republic's regime goes away, a regime that has immiserated so many people, starting with its own youth that the regime has been at war with for years, killing, raping, imprisoning at the notorious Evin prison in Tehran so many of these innocent youth just for playing a song or for going with their head uncovered. I mean, there must be a time to stand up to evil, and that time is now, as a unified international community, hopefully led by the United States of America, that needs to be the first one to understand that need.
Do you believe that the people of Iran, like you just talked about, are sort of ripe for support? I think about that obviously missed moment that happened many years ago with Obama, where they were protesting in the streets.
Rita, the Green Revolution
is the moment
2009.
now.
Yep, absolutely true. The U.S. has turned its back once on the Iranian people in the Green Revolution in 2009, when they were yearning for some support from the outside that might have toppled that evil regime. The result of this regime being in power means that so many people are suffering all across the world, in Israel and all across the Middle East. Now we have another golden opportunity to do exactly that with a strong, moral, courageous coalition. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing enough of that. And that disappoints me a lot. But make no mistake, when it comes to Israel, Israel will have to do what it has to do. But we only wish that the Western world and the free world will rise to understand the challenges and the danger ahead and will act accordingly alongside Israel. This could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because the price in the future will be far more expensive, Rita. The war will be far bloodier, and the challenge that Iran will pose will be far greater. Remember, what did we start with today, Rita? Believe them when they tell you who they are. And when they tell you they want to export a revolution and to destroy the West, the big Satan, they believe themselves. Why shouldn't we believe them?
And I want to wrap up where we started. You just brought up, obviously, the believe them when they tell you. Give us an update on how many hostages are still there, because I think about them every single day. I know you and I have talked about this from the very beginning, including little young Kafir Bibas.
Yep. 101 Israeli, and not just Israeli, by the way, American, Israeli, Thai, and others who've been held by these savages. And the reports that we have about the way that these people are being treated, they're being malnourished. Even when I think of those hostages, I think of Hersh Goldberg Polin of blessed memory, the American Chicagoan whose parents were so prominent in the campaign to bring him home, who spoke at the DNC in Chicago. And these savages had no shame, and by the way, without repercussion, to shoot him in the head. And when we were able to rescue the bodies, because that's also not a given with these savages, we noticed that their weight was ridiculous. They were malnourished to the core. They were treated in the most horrible conditions. They were kept at a humid tunnel where they can't even stretch, Rita. They can't, let alone stand up, and they have to take turns to sleep while somebody is standing. Can you imagine the kind of conditions that these hostages are in? So I think every decent person must have these hostages in mind and in heart, including Kfir Bibas, who was kidnapped at 9 months old. I mean, I look at his picture. He was kidnapped with his 4-year-old brother, with his mother, with his father. And I look at their picture and I think, that's a colonial aggressor, a baby. And if you're marching down the street and not calling for his release, then shame on you, because you lost the right to be called a human being and a part of humanity.
Yeah, 100%. We can never forget that they are there. And let's pray that they're alive. Let's pray that they come back. And let's pray that Iran
Amen.
is eradicated and its evil mission around the world. Everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. Shahar Azani, such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Truly, Rita, that resonates through the heart. And I just want to say a big thanks to you. You have never, ever lost your moral compass and your bravery and public courage to call out the people, the government, call truth to power and speak up for all of the right issues. And I appreciate support and incredibly grateful for your moral clarity and for your ability to convey the truth to people. So thank you, truly. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.